overspeeds and leniency being emphasized when you're instructing your employees to make sure they report their overspeeds. Those are two things that if you put together, hey, you're not going to get fired, but we need to know about the overspeeds, you can save lives, quite literally, as is seen in that circular, that advisory. What happened in that, the long and short is, somebody flying their 205 before this gentleman was that day, either had a series of overspeeds with failure to report, or had a major overspeed with failure to report. This led to a single main rotor blade to release itself during flight. This is a Bell 205. As soon as that happens on any helicopter, it goes from wanting to pivot in the middle to wanting to pivot there. You have no more blade, no more pivot point. Your helicopter that's here will swing around that pivot point. Shreds from an overspeed. Main rotor blade release. That's serious. That's why we send them back to Robinson after an attack. So, I'm going to start out with our types of overspeeds. All of these are overspeeds. Startup overspeed. Lift to hover, which actually Rob taught me about how to keep that from happening this morning. So we've got our startup overspeeds, lift into a hover, engine and rotor. Engine and rotor RPM during flight. I'm sorry, I should put these over here. This is engine and rotor. This is engine and rotor. This is just engine. And this is just rotor. So you can see we have from the spectrum each end from engine to rotor, and then we have a couple that are both in there. Our causes. So for the engine RPM on startup, the cause is pretty simple. You have your throttle open. That's the long and the short of it, the beginning and the end. Our Sprag clutch ensures that, or the clutch being disengaged ensures there's no resistance on the motor. If you have extra gas and extra throttle going to that, it's going to be just like you're sitting at a stoplight in your Camaro and you blip the gas. Well, it only takes a little bit of gas to get that high RPM when there's nothing low in there, right? Engine's pretty simple. You always follow your checklist. Your hand will always be double checked into detent. You're dual in the cockpit, you're a CFI, double check that. Look down to the right, check your student's hand. You're going solo, don't deviate from your checklist. It's just that simple. Double check yourself. The potential damage for an engine overspeed, they list, scoring cylinders, damage to push rod, piston seals, crankshaft, magnetos. The biggest giveaway for a big overspeed, and maintenance will tell you this right off the bat, is go back to your fan. So on pre-flight, if you want to check yourself on your pre-flight, see if somebody maybe hadn't reported one, go look at your torque stripe on your king nut right there on your fan. That torque stripe that goes straight through that roll pin they put through there, they get caulked on high engine overspeeds. If it's not straight in there, it's not a small deal. So during lift to the hover,
You guys do not do this.
during lift to a hover basically is when we have our governor turned off during governor off training and we're training a student. So like you said, you shouldn't really have to worry about this. That and the slow rate that we should be lifting our collective at is going to prevent this when we have our governor engaged. Governor off and we raise the collective. If we start from the bottom, as an example, I'll give it this way. At the bottom, when we did governor off today, everywhere on the ground. I was at 80% with no governor. 14 inches of pressure, less than that pulled. Start raising the collective. This met me when I started to get light at 104. I had not rolled on any throttle. And the correlator took me from that at 11 inches and solid on the ground to 104, and I had to roll off before I could get off the ground. If you're at this, you're on the ground solid, and you start raising that collective to lift off with no governor, it's gonna happen. Don't roll off the throttle. Instant overspeed.
What about hot days or summer? Can you do
It gets worse.
Can you do that even with governor on? Can you got an engine overspeed? If you raise collective hard?
If you raise the collective hard, on any given day, if you raise the collective fast and you're not on top of it, the governor's not fast enough to catch. You're already at 104. You only have 1.4% to be under a reportable overspeed, right? Is it 105?
1.5.
105. So you have 1%. And 1%, as we all know, looking at that gauge, is that much. Do you see me move my fingers? Me neither. So potential damage is the same thing. You're overspeeding the engine. Major engine damage, rings, things vibrating loose they shouldn't. Prevention on that, follow your checklist. Make sure your governor's switched on. Resist the governor while it gets to 104 when you initially turn that governor on, and let it take it 80. Wrap your hand around it. Just let it go even slower at the top. That, and make sure you are actually, when you're going through your flight downwind checks, that you're actually looking for this information. Upper warning lights are out. You're actually looking across them and verifying. You got sun in your eyes? Do another double check. Move your head to the side. Make sure that you can tell these lights are on. Of course, the governor's on the lower panel, sorry, but make sure you do your checks. That, and there's really no reason that you should be lifting off really fast in the first place. There's no place you want to get to fast enough to damage the helicopter, more importantly yourself or somebody else when they get into it next time. Engine RPM during flight. So causes for this could be anything from a governor failure to an inadvertent switching off of the governor, improperly handling the throttle, as you were talking about, Mark Hostet inadvertently rolling off throttle to change his RPM rather than checking himself and kind of changing his cockpit position, maybe keeping refreshed by, looking out, changing airspeed a little bit, doing something a little bit different. The prevention for this is pretty much scan your instruments, change your cockpit position. The governor usually ensures our RPM, but one of the reasons we get into this habit of gauges in the green, fuel is required, which is not really what we should be doing. We should be saying fuel quarter and over half, right? Because when you say fuel is required, even in my head when I was saying that, I'm like, yeah, fuel is required. I could say that all day long and not ever look down. That's kind of the idea we're trying to get rid of. Fuel quarter and half. RPMs. Oh, look, we're close to 105. What's going on here? Because if you're just glancing through those, you're not going to see that 1% either.
So you're suggesting actually calling out the percentage?
Do what?
You're suggesting calling out the percentage?
Yeah.
On the road?
Yeah. In 7710 Hotel, we were 103% on both gauges all the way. Well, aside from practicing with the governor, then we were like, I was at 97 right above the horn. That's my safety margin. 97 is going to tell me if I go too low, right?
Right.
Oh, okay, you're a little more. But hand wrap for deets at all times. I don't want to go out.
Right.
I'm close to the ground, but how to work. You can always go down. Hover always snap, right? So there's two different critical phases in my mind when I was going through this that we're going to have high RPMs in our auto. And I'll just draw a flight path for an average auto. It's not going to be even close to what it probably really looks like, but the first place that we're going to have a problem is right about, so this is lower collective. The first place you can get into a problem is right around there. If you're with two pilots that are above 130 pounds, and there's enough fuel in the helicopter, you guys can probably think off your head, what do you do? Lower collective and
Pitchfork.
pitch pull. Usually what happens is you feel that heaviness in the seat. That's when you know, okay, it's going to come up a little for me. What that means is, what's happening is you're settling onto, big head resistance.
You got like 2 minutes, man.
That's okay, because I'm right at the end of this one.
Oh yeah?
So this is the first place that we can have a problem with RPMs. No pitch pull, and this is the point you should have. Pitch pull, right about there. You're going to hit that and you overspit. So that's our first point during auto rotation. That's one of our deal breakers. The second point, anywhere in this curve right there. We'll call that, as far as the rotors are concerned, the red man's curve. What's going to happen is your attitude changes to go into a flare. You go from having this slightly nose forward with your rotor system taking air and cycling it this way, and at this point you initiate a flare. So you go from this nice little bit nose forward, you start leveling it out. You start getting a little bit steeper. There's flare. This, you're going to feel that weight in your seat. And if you're not leading this flare with a little bit of collective and keeping those RPMs down 100, 101, letting them build gradually and adjusting your collective as necessary, that's where you're going to get your second overspeed in the auto. The whole goal here is just to manage your RPMs. So, overspeed prevention, manage your entry, stabilize, manage your flare.
What about 180s?
Okay, the term. I forgot about the term. Thank you. 180s. I'm going to leave that there, but we'll squeeze it in over here. Direction of travel, Charlie pattern. So during 180s, we have this third place. This one's a little bit more difficult to explain. I'll try to do it clearly. But as we're moving this portion to our entry, we get stable, we initiate a turn. Okay, so we've probably have we already gone over auto rotations lessons? I'll just say yeah, we've gone over auto rotations. We understand what that heaviness in the seat's going to feel like. When you start making this turn, just as we've been through thrust vectors. We're all familiar with that, right? The whole breakdown of thrust vectors, and where the force ends up being the lift, result force. Think of this. Now, in a turn, you go from straight auto rotation, and you start vectoring, and you're getting heavier and heavier in the seat. Just like you add G's, 1.2, 1.6, your RPMs are going to want to do the same thing because you're doing the exact opposite. You're adding G's, you have to stay aloft, and you're vectoring thrust to make a turn.
So your RPM's going to shoot up.
RPMs are going to shoot up.
Is that because you're also coning?
Oh, coning is a result of your added G load.
Right.
So you start making that, well, okay, we're going to go back. I almost caught myself. You start lifting the collective as you're starting to make your turn. I lead with my collective, and I lead the turn hand. You know it's going to come. It's going to come. As soon as you get tipped on your side, the RPMs are going to come. In an auto, you lead everything with the collective. That term, leave it to collective.
What if I turn tight or shallow, do I have to change how much collective I raise?
The tighter you turn, the more collective you need. The tighter you turn, the higher this vector is going to become. This one is going to stay constant in auto rotation. We have a steady glide going. This is going to remain the same, but if we add side G load, this is our collective range right there. So if you have entered, you've set, felt your thigh, you know where your collective is. When you are coming out of that term, if you have kind of memorized that, have a feel for where it's going to be, that's where you stop when you lead with that collective to come out of the term.
So I have to lower the collective after the turn too?
As you're coming, you're leading it slightly. As you come out of the term, you lower the collective back to where standard auto will be. As long as you didn't raise your nose, you should be at the same speed too. Okay, that's overspeeds. We had startup overspeeds, which was pretty basic, right? What's the only thing that's going to give you a startup overspeed?
Open throttle.
Any kind of open throttle. Cracked throttle. That's all you have to think to, just a crack. Lift to a hover. Not so much for you guys, but where are we going to get lift to hover overspeeds?
Raising collective too fast. So even a private
That's for
student.
anybody.
Yeah. So
That one's for anybody.
Hot days. Governor off.
Hot days.
governor off.
Go off. Scrub off. I bet you, next time I do that, I'm going to start at 75% and raise. And then we'll see if we get 104 when we're off the ground. Probably not still.
No, it takes, you have to be at 70.
It has to be all the way to 70. During flight, what are a couple of the conditions or mitigating circumstances that might give us a during flight pose?
Governor off, turbulence.
Go around, turbulence, those two right there together, that's a pretty instant way. If you haven't rolled down, your governor's inactive, override the governor, switch it off. I'm using the right hand.
Yeah, please don't do that.
It's my bad.
Autopilot.
Cool. All right, good job, Jake.